Overnight, bunks once filled by Army Rangers and Special Forces veterans stand empty. More than 80% of Delta Force candidates gone before day 10, not defeated by injury or failure, but choosing to leave. The system's secret isn't torture or impossible tasks, but a psychological maze designed to break the will of even the most elite recruits. What could make the best soldiers in America walk away before the real test even begins? The answer begins decades earlier, in a single exchange program that changed special operations forever. Rows of bunks, once crowded with men who had earned their place through years of hardship and training, empty out in the darkness. Each morning the numbers shrink. Out of roughly 120 who arrive at Fort Liberty, most are gone before the course even approaches its infamous physical trials. The men who vanish are not new recruits. They are seasoned Rangers, Special Forces operators, and decorated infantry leaders. They have survived combat tours, passed every fitness test the Army can throw at them, and worn the badges that mark them as the best. The pace of disappearance is relentless. In some classes, nearly 100 men quit in the first week. One former Delta operator, Eric Haney, described the scene in his memoir. He watched as men who had spent years in elite units packed their bags in the quiet hours before dawn, leaving behind nothing but empty beds and the faint echo of boots in the hallway. Haney wrote of a silence that settled over the barracks, a sense of absence more powerful than any shouted order or failed event. The men who left did so not because of injury or disqualification, but because something inside them decided there was no reason to stay. The statistics are stark. Across decades, the pattern repeats. From an initial class of about 120, only 15 to 30 remain by the time the first 10 days end. Some cycles have seen as few as 6 finishers. The attrition rate, around 85%, is not a fluke or a product of bad luck. It is the result of a system designed to test something far deeper than physical strength or technical skill. There is no ceremony for those who quit, no confrontation, no attempt to persuade them to stay. A candidate who decides to leave simply tells a cadre member. Within minutes, he is on his way back to garrison, his place in the barracks already claimed by silence. The process is as unremarkable as it is final. In the words of George Hand, another former Delta operator, most classes run in the 90th percentile for attrition. A graduation of just 2 men was not unheard of. The question lingers in the empty barracks. What force could drive so many proven warriors to walk away, not from failure, but from a voluntary test they had spent years preparing to face? The answer is not found in the weight of a rucksack or the length of a march. It lies in the architecture of the selection itself, a system that, by design, strips away every external motivator and leaves each man alone with nothing but his own will. As the bunks empty, the real test is only beginning. In 1962, a young American officer named Charles Beckwith arrived in Malaya on a year-long exchange with the British Special Air Service. The SAS had already built a reputation for producing some of the toughest soldiers in the world. But what struck Beckwith was not just their physical endurance. It was the way their selection process stripped men down to their core, searching for something beyond strength or skill. In the hills of Wales and the jungles of Southeast Asia, SAS, candidates faced weeks of solo navigation, endless marches across the Brecon beacons, and a silence from instructors that bordered on total indifference. There were no words of encouragement, no hints about what came next, and no visible path to success. The only constant was uncertainty and the relentless demand to keep moving. Beckwith watched as the majority of SAS hopefuls, sometimes more than 90%, dropped out before the end of the first month. The survivors were not always the fastest or the strongest, but they were the ones who could endure without praise, guidance, or even acknowledgement. The lesson was clear. Physical fitness was only the price of admission. The real test was psychological. The SAS called it a search for self-discipline and independence. Beckwith saw it as a filter for men who could operate without the comfort of a team, a schedule, or a clear finish line. When Beckwith returned to the United States, he carried this philosophy with him. In 1977, he used it as the blueprint for Delta Force selection. He insisted that every candidate begin with a set of physical gaits, timed runs, push-ups, sit-ups, a swim, and a land navigation test that any top-tier soldier could pass. These were not meant to weed out the weak, but to ensure that only those with proven ability would face the true challenge ahead. What followed was a deliberate recreation of the SAS ordeal: solo navigation, escalating rucksack weights, and a near-total absence of feedback. The cadre, following the British model, offered no encouragement and no explanations. The silence was as much a tool as any physical obstacle. The result was a system that mirrored the SAS in both design and outcome. Like their British counterparts, Delta Force classes saw attrition rates of 85 to 90% before the end of the first 10 days. The men who remained were not simply fit, they were self-driven, able to persist in a vacuum, and immune to the loss of every external motivator. Beckwith's adaptation of the SAS model became the foundation of Delta's identity. The process was never about finding the strongest body, but the strongest mind. This imported philosophy, tested in the hills of Wales and refined in the forests of North Carolina, explains why so many elite soldiers walk away, and why only a handful ever finish. Lights snap on without warning. Candidates wake from shallow sleep, if they slept at all. The clock on the wall is covered. No one knows if it's midnight, 2 in the morning, or dawn. Instructions come in clipped sentences: grab your rucksack, report outside, move now. The first 72 hours are a blur of motion and fatigue. Sleep comes in fragments, 2 to 4 hours at best, broken by sudden wake-ups that leave men disoriented and aching. Meals arrive at unpredictable times, sometimes skipped entirely, other times rushed with no chance to sit. The body's natural rhythm is lost almost immediately. Hunger gnaws at the edges of concentration. Stomachs growl through the silence as men wait for orders that never explain what's coming next. There is no posted schedule, no list of events to check off, no way to anticipate what the day or night will bring. The only certainty is uncertainty. Candidates are told to be ready, but for what, they never know. Some are sent on short runs in full gear. Others wait for hours with nothing to do but watch the walls and listen to their own thoughts. The cadre move through the barracks like shadows, offering no encouragement, no explanations, not even a glance of recognition. Every detail of military life that once gave structure, formation, eames, meal calls, the cadence of the day, is stripped away, leaving no structure. The lack of information is not an oversight, it is the system. Men who have spent years mastering the Army's routines find themselves adrift, unable to predict or control even the smallest detail of their experience. The only instructions are immediate and limited to the bare minimum: a grid coordinate, a time to be somewhere, a weight to carry. There is no mention of how long the event will last, how far they will travel, or how they will be judged. The standards are hidden. The finish line is invisible. As exhaustion sets in, the mind begins to slip. Memory blurs. Simple decisions, when to eat, how to pace a march, whether to change socks, become difficult. Some candidates start to question their own competence. Others grow irritable, snapping at small annoyances or falling silent altogether. The atmosphere is thick with tension, but no one dares to break the silence. Even the most experienced soldiers, men who have led teams in combat, find themselves second-guessing every move. In this environment, the loss of sleep and the denial of routine are not just inconveniences, they are weapons, carefully calibrated to erode confidence and force every man to confront his own limits alone. The foundation for everything that follows is laid in these first 3 days, as the process of psychological disassembly begins in earnest. Rucksacks hit shoulders at dawn, the straps digging in before the day has even started. The load is heavy, 35 pounds at first, then 40, then 45, never announced, just quietly increased by the cadre between evolutions. Each candidate is handed a map, a compass, and a grid coordinate. The instructions are as spare as the rations. Move alone, reach the next point, be there by the time you think is right. No one says how far it will be. No one says how fast you must go. The only certainty is the weight on your back and the silence all around. The terrain outside Fort Liberty offers no mercy. The Uwharrie National Forest, with its dense pine and hardwood stands, hides every feature in a maze of ridgelines and creek beds. The land is not mountainous, but the routes are chosen for maximum confusion, nothing but endless woods, gullies, and ground that looks the same in every direction. The maps are old, the trails often overgrown or erased by weather. Every step is a calculation. How much farther? How much longer? How much heavier will the next leg feel? Distances stretch out across the day. 18 miles, 20 miles. The numbers are never given, only measured afterward by the ache in knees and the raw skin beneath the rucksack straps. The pace is relentless. There is no group to set a rhythm, no partner to share the load. Each man walks alone, keeping his own time, his own doubts, his own pain. Water runs low. Blisters bloom and break. The weight in the pack seems to grow with every mile, pressing down on the spine, grinding into the hips, making every small climb feel like a mountain. At each checkpoint, a cadre member stands with a clipboard, watching but never speaking. Arrival times are recorded in silence. The next grid is handed over without a word. There is no praise, no warning, no hint of how many points remain or how far to the end. The only feedback is the absence of failure. If you are still moving, you are still in. The only reward is the chance to keep suffering. As the days pass, the loads grow heavier. Some packs tip past 50 pounds, but the candidates are never told exactly when or why. The increase is felt in the burning legs and the slow, grinding fatigue that settles in the bones. The body begins to break down, blisters on top of blisters, joints swollen, shoulders bruised from the straps. The mind, deprived of sleep and certainty, starts to drift. The only thing that matters is the next step, the next checkpoint, the next moment spent not quitting. There is no end in sight. No one says how many days are left, how many miles remain, or how close anyone is to the finish. The silence of the cadre, the weight of the rucksack, and the endless unmarked miles combine into a single, grinding ordeal. For most, the question becomes not whether they can carry the load, but whether they want to. For 85%, the answer comes quietly, somewhere between one checkpoint and the next, as the forest swallows another candidate who decides, at last, to let the weight go. A candidate who decides to quit does not face a tribunal or a lecture. He speaks a single sentence to a cadre member. Within minutes, a vehicle arrives. There is no delay, no paperwork, no effort to change his mind. The extraction is quiet and absolute. No one asks why. No one records a reason. The man is driven away, his place erased as if he was never there. George Handford, a former Delta operator, described it bluntly. Most classes run in the 90% attrition range. A graduation of just 2 men was not unheard of. The process is designed to make quitting as easy as possible, stripping away any sense of penalty or shame. The absence of confrontation is not kindness, it is the final test. With no external pressure, no threat of disgrace, the only thing left is the candidate's own will. The system offers a painless exit, and in that moment, the question is simple. Do you stay because you must, or because you choose to? For most, the answer comes in silence and a ride back to garrison. Peer-reviewed studies and Army research reports have tracked thousands of special operations candidates through selection courses over the past 2 decades. The results point to a single, consistent pattern. Psychological traits, not physical ones, are the strongest predictors of who endures. Data from the U.S. Army Research Institute and the Journal of Special Operations Medicine show that measures like grit, distress tolerance, and intrinsic motivation explain more of the difference between pass and fail than any fitness test or prior experience. In one study of over 2,000 Army SOF candidates, the short grit scale showed a correlation of 0.31 with selection success. That is more than double the effect of physical metrics like VO2 max or run times. Distress tolerance, the ability to keep moving forward under stress with no external reward, produced the highest odds of completion. Physical strength and aerobic capacity matter only as minimum thresholds. Once inside the process, the difference between those who stay and those who quit is almost entirely psychological. The science confirms what Delta's architects have known for decades. The system is designed to reveal the rare individual whose drive comes from within, not from the promise of recognition or tangible reward. Training programs across the special operations world are taking notice. Leadership at other Tier 1 units now experiment with self-directed endurance checkpoints and silent navigation events. aiming to surface the same rare trait that Delta selection exposes: intrinsic motivation in the absence of all external reward. Instructors design exercises where candidates receive no feedback, no encouragement, and no confirmation of success or failure, forcing each soldier to rely on internal drive alone. Some units have begun to replace traditional team-based challenges with solo endurance tasks that mimic the uncertainty and isolation of Delta's early days. The lesson is clear. Physical preparation is only the beginning. The real challenge lies in building the mental habits and self-discipline that allow a person to keep moving forward when there is no applause, no scoreboard, and no one watching. As the science continues to confirm what Delta's founders understood decades ago, elite units are rethinking what it means to prepare for the unknown. Today, every Delta Force candidate faces the same silent test: endure without reason or walk away. In a world obsessed with measurable results, the qualities that matter most remain hidden: grit, self-reliance, and the will to continue alone. As elite units grow in importance, so does our need to understand what truly sets someone apart. Sometimes, the greatest strength is the absence of any visible reward. What would you do?